How do you rise when the world sees you only as someone meant to kneel? I used to scrub their floors, clean their mess, and pretend I couldn't hear their whispers. Now, I run the very company that once laughed at me, and this is how I did it. The room always smelled faintly of bleach and boiled cabbage. It was a small apartment in the city's older district, 2 bedrooms, thin walls, crooked blinds. Grace shared it with Mrs. Ellison, an elderly widow who rented out the extra room to supplement her pension. The rent was cheap, the rules were strict, and the heating was unreliable. But for Grace, it was home. She folded laundry with precise, silent care. Her uniforms, navy polo, black slacks, durable shoes, all neatly stacked. Her fingers trembled as she placed each piece into the drawer. A tiny gray kitten hopped onto the bed, purring and playful. She broke her toast in half and offered him the bigger piece. "Eat slow, okay, Boomer," she murmured. She never raised her voice. Never asked for much. And never forgot where she came from. Flashback, childhood. A young girl sits by a narrow bed, feeding soup to a woman who is too thin to sit up. A cracked photo of a man in a military uniform is taped to the wall. Dinner most nights was a slice of bread and a drizzle of oil. Her clothes didn't fit. Her shoes had holes. The girls at school whispered about her smell, her silence, her secondhand notebooks. Then came the funeral. Rain. Wet shoes. No umbrella. A single flower on the casket. Her aunt showed up late, smelling of cigarettes and impatience. Dragged her by the wrist into a house that reeked of mold and regret. Int. Aunt's kitchen, night. "You could have married the grocer's son," Aunt Linda shrieked, slamming a spoon against the table. "But no, you're too good for everyone, right? Think you're special?" A slipper flew across the room, hitting Grace on the arm. She didn't flinch. She just stood there, her eyes blank. "You're ungrateful. Useless." Grace didn't respond. She knew better. Int. Bedroom, later that night. The piggy bank was buried behind a loose floorboard, savings from cleaning neighbors' porches and tutoring kids after school. Grace packed what little she had, 2 shirts, a toothbrush, the photo of her father, and a silent promise. She walked out into the night and never looked back. Int. Employment office, day. She was 19. Slim. Pale. Quiet. "I'll take anything," she said. The HR woman barely looked up. "We need cleaners at 11th and Main. Office building. You start today." No questions asked. No welcome. Just a uniform and a time card. Int. Modern office, lobby, day. Marble floors. Cold lighting. People in sleek clothes. Grace entered with her mop bucket and a folded schedule. She felt their eyes on her, the women's side eyes, the men's not-so-subtle glances at her chest. Int. Office floor, later. She scrubbed silently, careful not to splash the walls. "What is that smell?" a woman in heels barked. "Are you using garbage water?" Grace froze. Laughter erupted. Another voice chimed in. "She looks like she got dressed in a lost and found bin." The mop shook in her hand. But she said nothing. She never did. Only one man didn't laugh, a quiet presence near the printer. He didn't join in. Didn't look away either. Just watched her with a flicker of something Grace hadn't seen in a long time. Pity. No. Kindness. The mop water had gone cold. Grace knelt by the tile baseboard, scrubbing a coffee stain with a bristle brush. Her knees ached. Her palms stung. The laughter from earlier still echoed in her ears. But she didn't cry. She never cried at work. Int. Break room, lunchtime. She sat alone, eating yogurt from a disposable cup. No one spoke to her. Some people glanced, then quickly looked away. A group of women stood by the water cooler, whispering and giggling. Did you see her shoes? She probably pulled them out of a donation bin. Did you hear she followed Alex out of the building yesterday? That last one made her look up. Alex. The man by the printer. The only person who hadn't laughed. Grace's face burned. Int. Office lobby, evening. Grace was emptying a trash can when Alex walked past. He paused. Hey, he said softly. You missed a spot. Just kidding. She looked up, startled. A small, almost reluctant smile formed. Rough day, he asked. She nodded. You want coffee? There's a place down the block. My treat. Her breath caught. He wasn't mocking her. He meant it. Int. Cafe, evening. The cafe was cozy, warm. Grace held her cup like it was the only heat in the world. Alex talked. He was funny. Smart. Kind. She found herself laughing, actually laughing, for the first time in weeks. My mom used to call me mophead when I came home smelling like bleach, she joked. Mine called me disaster chef because I once burned cereal, he replied. They sat for an hour. Maybe more. She forgot about the mop, the stain, the jeers. Forgot she was the cleaner. She was just Grace. Int. Office, next morning. People stared. It was subtle at first. Then it wasn't. Two women passed her in the hallway and burst into laughter. One of them made a gagging sound. A message popped up on the building's group chat, breaking. Cinderella spotted at Starbucks with Prince Charming. But she forgot her dress shoes, again. Grace's face drained of color. Int. Supply closet, later. She stared at her reflection in the metal shelf. Hair tied back. Uniform faded. Her name stitched on a patch, Grace. Who do you think you are? She whispered. Int. Break room, late night. Grace sat alone, again. Her kitten, Boomer, nestled in her hoodie. She fed him yogurt from the office fridge, stolen from the employees only section. She didn't care. Her phone buzzed. Rent was due. Her balance was frighteningly low. Grace took out her father's medal from her pocket, tarnished but clean. She closed her eyes and held it tight. I won't quit, she whispered. Not like this. Int. Office corridor, day. She passed Alex. He didn't look at her. Didn't smile. Didn't say a word. The betrayal stung more than the gossip. Int. Women's restroom, moments later. Grace locked herself in a stall. On the wall, someone had scrawled. Bleach girl thinks she's cute. LOL. She sank onto the closed toilet seat, chest heaving. Then she reached for her phone. Typed something. Deleted it. Typed again. Then paused. This wasn't her end. This was her beginning. The office never slept. Even after the lights dimmed and the voices hushed, it pulsed, with ambition, gossip, hunger. Grace moved through the halls like a ghost, cleaning up what no one else wanted to see. But that night, she wasn't invisible. Int. Office, night shift. She was emptying bins near the executive suite when the door opened behind her. She didn't turn around. I'm sorry. Alex's voice was soft, sincere. I should have said something. Grace kept her eyes on the trash. Why didn't you? A long pause. Then, because I'm a coward. And because I knew what they'd say if I defended you. She turned to face him. They already said it. He nodded. I know. For the first time, she let the silence hang. Then she surprised herself. Buy me coffee again. And don't run this time. Int. Cafe, next evening. It was their second coffee, and it felt different. Familiar. Easier. Alex shared stories about his father's dry sarcasm and growing up in a tiny apartment with 4 siblings. Grace talked about her dream of going back to school someday. You ever think of leaving the cleaning job? He asked. Every day. Then why don't you? She looked at him, raw and honest. Because I have rent. And Boomer. And a life that doesn't let me just try something new. Alex didn't interrupt. He just listened. That was new too. Int. Office, next morning. Grace walked in, head slightly higher. The whispers started immediately. She'd expected it. The messages on Slack. The mocking TikTok someone made, of her in the elevator with Alex, soundtrack to a sappy love song. But she kept her chin up. Until she reached the cleaning closet. A note was taped to the door. Get a room, bleach girl. Beneath it, someone had drawn a crude cartoon of her and Alex kissing, exaggerated features, mop in hand. Grace ripped it down, jaw clenched. She turned, only to find 2 interns filming her on their phones. Her breath caught. Int. HR office, afternoon. Grace sat stiffly across from the HR woman, the same one who had hired her without making eye contact. We've received some complaints, the woman began. About your conduct. My conduct? Grace asked, incredulous. There are rumors of inappropriate fraternization with a senior employee. Disruptive presence. Emotional instability. I'm being bullied. The HR rep smiled tightly. We're simply asking for discretion. Grace felt something inside her snap. This place is a circus. And you want to talk about discretion? The HR woman looked offended. Perhaps this isn't the best environment for you. Int. Rooftop, later. Grace sat on the rooftop, alone. Wind tugged at her ponytail. Her phone buzzed with a message from Alex. HR just called me in. I'm so sorry. She didn't reply. Instead, she looked out at the city skyline. All those glowing offices, places people fought to get into. She was starting to wonder if it was worth it. But just as she stood up to leave, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Your father saved my life. Call me. Grace blinked. Then stared at the message again. Int. Office, next day. A distinguished man in his 50s walked through the building. Crisp suit. Sharp eyes. Military posture. He paused when he saw Grace mopping the corner by the elevators. You're Grace Carter? She looked up cautiously. Yes, sir. I served with your father. His voice lowered. He was the bravest man I knew. Grace froze. He extended a card. Come see me. Top floor. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like a different world. Grace had never been above the 10th. The 24th was quiet, marble floors, frosted glass doors, soft hums of wealth and power. No gossip, no mocking, no bleach smell. Just silence. And then, the door opened. Int. Owner's office, day. He stood by the window, arms crossed behind his back. Your father was Corporal Thomas Carter, he said, not turning around. Grace nodded. He was the kind of man you don't forget. Always first in, last out. Saved my life in Fallujah. Took a bullet meant for me. Now he turned to her. You look like him. In the eyes. Grace didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to people seeing her, not really. He walked around the desk, picked up a medal from the drawer, and placed it on the table. He mailed this to me before he passed. Said if I ever ran into his daughter, I'd know. Grace's eyes welled up. I don't understand, why now? He smiled faintly. I watched the security footage. I saw how they treat you. How you kept going anyway? Grace straightened. Why tell me this? Because I'm tired of this place pretending the lowest paid person is the least valuable. And I don't like watching courage get laughed at. Int. Training room, day. You're not a cleaner anymore, he said. You're a trainee. Starting today. Grace blinked. Trainee, for what? Operations. Customer service. Eventually management, if you want it. Her hand trembled as she reached for the packet he handed her. Inside was a badge, no longer labeled cleaning staff, but staff associate. New uniform too, he added, with a smile. Something a bit more your size. Grace nearly cried. Int. Office hallway, moments later. She passed the cleaning closet one last time. The note was gone. In its place, a simple post-it, scribbled in a different hand. Good luck. You earned it. She smiled. Montage. Grace at a training seminar, taking notes faster than the instructor can speak. A company laptop in her hands. Her new clothes, sleek, fitted, respectful. Boomer, her kitten, curled up on the windowsill of a new, sunlit apartment. Her brushing off resumes, comparing job titles. Alex waiting outside the office with coffee, holding 2 cups and a hopeful expression. Grace handing him one, no words exchanged, just a nod. Int. Owner's office, night. The owner pours 2 glasses of whiskey. One for me. One for your father. They toast. He'd be proud, he says. Grace holds her glass up but doesn't drink. I'm not done yet. But I'll get there. Int. Office, next morning. The bitter employee, the same one who once shouted about garbage water, is packing up her desk. She's being let go. HR watches her like a hawk. She glances at Grace as she walks past. No words. Grace doesn't gloat. She simply keeps walking. Upward. Grace no longer flinched when she walked into the building. Her badge didn't buzz red anymore, it opened doors. Literal ones. Symbolic ones. She no longer arrived with mop in hand, but with a notebook, a schedule, and a quiet sense of authority. The whispers had changed, too. Now, people looked when she entered a room, not to laugh, but to listen. Int. Customer Service Department, day. Let her take the lead on this one, a manager said, nodding toward Grace. She stepped forward, voice steady. The client, a major distribution partner, was complaining about shipment delays. Grace didn't apologize right away. She asked questions. Listened. Took notes. Then, she spoke with such calm precision that the client leaned in, nodding slowly. When the call ended, the room clapped. Her old supervisor whispered to a colleague, that girl used to scrub the floors. Int. Grace's new apartment, night. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling. The city sparkled outside. Her kitten, Boomer, darted between cardboard boxes and new furniture. On the kitchen counter sat a welcome basket, wine, fruit, a handwritten note from the owner. Your father would have chosen this view. Glad you're here. Grace stood in the kitchen barefoot, overwhelmed by the silence. A soft knock on the door startled her. It was Alex. I brought lasagna, he said, holding up a foil tray. Not homemade. But I microwaved it with conviction. She smiled and stepped aside. Int. Office conference room, day. The owner watched from the corner as Grace presented a proposal to the executive team. She didn't need help. She ran the show. Charts. Slides. Confidence. And with an optimized vendor model, we reduce costs by 12% in Q1. Any questions? There were none. The man who once laughed at her mop bucket now sat in the back, scribbling notes and avoiding her gaze. The owner leaned in, whispered to a colleague, she's a force. Just like her father. Int. Lobby, day. A few months later, HR rolled out the new leadership structure. Grace's name appeared on the company-wide email. Promoted, Grace Carter, Associate Director of Operations. People clapped, some awkwardly, others sincerely. She passed the cleaning closet later that day. Inside was a new girl, maybe 19, struggling with the vacuum cord. Grace smiled. "Hey," she said gently. "Let me show you a trick." Int. Bitter employees exit interview, day. She ranted. Blamed everyone. Complained about favoritism and that girl, who somehow leapfrogged her way up. The HR rep simply nodded and took notes. Across the hallway, Grace walked past with a quiet nod. The bitter woman looked away. It was over. Int. Rooftop, night. Alex and Grace stood against the railing, looking over the city. "Ever imagine this?" he asked. She took a breath. "Every single night I cried in that supply closet, I imagined this." He turned to her, quiet. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." She didn't smile. She just said, "No. I'm just someone who didn't quit." The building felt smaller now. Maybe it was the confidence, or maybe it was because Grace had finally outgrown it, not just the job, but the limits others had placed on her. Her steps were no longer hesitant. Her voice didn't waver. And when people looked at her now, it wasn't with pity, or judgment, or cruel curiosity. It was respect. Int. Pet store, day. Grace knelt to grab a can of pâté from the bottom shelf, Boomer's favorite. As she stood, the can slipped from her hand. A man nearby caught it with ease, chuckling. "You've got good taste. This stuff smells better than what I eat most nights." She laughed, genuinely. His eyes were kind. Honest. No flicker of recognition. Just a man, meeting a woman, over cat food. They chatted. About pets. About city rent. About nothing, really, and yet it felt like something. When they left, he offered to carry her bag. She didn't say no. EXT Street, night. He walked her home. "Should I stop here?" he asked, standing outside her building. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I think I'd rather you stayed a little longer." They sat on her steps, watching the night stretch across the city. He leaned in, shy but certain. "I watched your window all night," he whispered. Couldn't walk away. Tears filled her eyes. Not sadness. Not even relief. Something gentler. "Then stay." Int. Corporate meeting room, day. The projector flicked on. Grace stood at the head of the table, flanked by regional managers, analysts, and new trainees. "Let's begin." Her presentation was clean, strategic, visionary. She spoke with ease, fielded questions, took notes on a digital pad. Behind her on the credenza, a framed photo of Boomer, his tiny face peeking out from her old uniform pocket. Grace Carter was no longer a cleaner. She was a partner. Int. Owner's office, evening. Sunlight spilled across the desk. The owner sat, old but proud, flipping through quarterly reports. Across from him, Grace stood with a glass of sparkling cider. On the desk between them lay her father's medal, polished, centered, dignified. "He'd be proud," the owner said. She smiled. "I hope so. I carry him with me. Every step." They toasted, not to business, not to revenge, not even to success. To resilience. To rising. To rewriting your place in the world, and never apologizing for it.